Judge Day, for those that are not familiar with your case, briefly summarize it and tell us why the charges were dismissed.
Well, there are two cases, Mark. First was an ethics case relating to a variety of issues, but the main one, the sole reason I believe the ethics case was there, because I quietly recused myself from performing any same-sex marriages, a job that, or something that I don't have to do as a judge. I don't have to marry people. But out of that, when I began to fight back and say, no, I'm not going to give up my position, I'm not going to resign, the state of Oregon decided to charge me with 2 felonies for something that never happened. And that is, I went out to help a veteran in my veterans treatment court, a court that is designed to wrap around those participants and help them and care for them. He had no heat in the dead of winter. He lived way out in the forest on a farm that in a hovel. And my son and I went out there to help him. My son was his friend. While I was fixing the pellet stove, my son brought in an unloaded gun that he had purchased. He showed it to the Navy SEAL. The Navy SEAL picked it up, showed him a SEAL move, and put it in the box. Well, the SEAL was a felon, and I was working on the pellet stove. I didn't even think about that. It doesn't matter to me, really, in the context of that Good Samaritan Act. Well, because of that, the state of Oregon decided to charge me with aiding and abetting that felon, that Navy SEAL, with holding that gun.
They went ahead and decided to dismiss all charges. Why was that? Why was that decision made?
Well, for a couple of different reasons. The Navy SEAL in question gave noble service to our country, in my opinion. He came back pretty bruised and broken in many ways, and I think the state realized that he wasn't going to come. He refused to show up, he refused to testify, and they didn't do their job, in my opinion. If I was the Attorney General, I would have subpoenaed that witness. I would have made sure, I would have sent somebody down to his home and made sure that he showed up. I mean, that's the obligation of the prosecutor. If they're going to charge somebody with a crime, they better be able to prove it. And the state couldn't prove it without that one witness.
Do you feel like it was divine intervention that at the last minute the charges were dropped?
Well, you know, the 2 Chronicles 16:9 is kind of one of my life verses. And it says, you know, the eyes of the Lord move to and fro throughout the whole earth to find those whose hearts are completely his. Why, we ask? That he may show himself strong on their behalf. My family is deeply committed to the Lord. I've been a believer for 43 years. I know the joy of the Lord in trials. It's been you know, people say, well, gosh, this must have been a terrible experience. Yeah, it has been. But God is relentlessly kind.
So what does the future hold for you? Is there a chance you will practice on the bench once again?
How I get back on the bench, or if I get back on the bench, that's in his hands, and therefore the outcome is his. I'm going to manage the process with him and take this adventure, and I'm not sure what the next step is, but when you adventure with Jesus, it always ends up to be a wonderful experience.